hope, strength and will to keep on. No one else can make me this way, and only you can bring out all the best I can do. How to leave a turpentine and make me feel real good inside. Pushed me up, and I'm about to give up. You're on my side, and no one seems to listen. And if you go, you know the tears can't help but show. You know you've always had my heart. From now on we'll never part. It's your smile, your face, your lips that I miss. The sweet little lies that stare at me and make me say I'm with you through all the way. 'Cause it's you that fills the emptiness in me, changes everything I see when I know I've got you with me.
Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Cathy.
Hello everyone, happy 2021. So it's good to be back and welcome to Conversations with Cathy. This is like our second year, so parang it's like our season 2. So we thank you for joining us this evening, and we have a really, really interesting and informative show for you tonight. An interesting conversation about a topic that is very much practically on everyone's minds today, the COVID-19 vaccine. So we invite you to send in your questions if you have any questions for our very special guest this evening, who I always like to say is the man of the hour because he has been featured in so many news programs and shows lately because, of course, he is very, very knowledgeable about the subject. So thank you for tuning in tonight. And this is our first show this year. We're going to have some changes. We won't be joining you now every Friday night, but you'll still see us. Await the new schedule. Cholo and I still have to determine what that is. But we're here this evening with a very important topic. And so, without any further ado, I would like to bring in our Balikbayan guest, a very good friend and a very special guest, the president of PHAP, Dr. Beaver Tamesis.
Hi, Cathy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so good to have you back after November, December, 5 months. And
Has
so
it been 5 months?
5 months. Yes, we had you in August during the first month of the program, and we had such an interesting conversation back then, and so many things, so very many things have changed, diba? So many things can change in a month. How much more in 5 months? So thank you, Doc, for giving us your time this evening. So first things first, there are I wouldn't say contenders, but the top three vaccines that people are now talking about: Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. Could you explain very briefly, like, to our to the public, what is the main differences? Meron bang advantages? Meron bang pros if I take Pfizer or whatever?
All right. Yeah, this is very new technology that actually is happening right now. Pfizer and BioNTech, the German partner, and then Moderna, which is a purely US company, they both decided to go with this platform or this type of vaccine called messenger RNA. This messenger RNA vaccine is much faster to actually make. So
Mm,
potentially manufacturing it, there's a major improvement in terms of manufacturing speed. So they can make millions and billions more of doses of the vaccine versus
mm,
the traditional, which would be more of the, well, not so traditional, more of the viral vector, where you have to grow and you have to interact, make sure that the virus
mm,
takes, the carrier virus takes, so that it will actually now help create the vaccine. So potentially there is a delay in terms of potential for manufacturing.
mhm.
In terms of efficacy that we've seen so far, safety and efficacy,
Yeah.
they're all about the same in terms of their safety profile. They're all very, side effects are very well tolerated, relatively small in number. But
Right.
the efficacy, there seems to be a numerical difference in
Mm,
terms of the percentage of efficacy. Like Pfizer and Moderna are claiming or publishing 90-95% efficacy rate,
yeah.
meaning if you have 10 patients in placebo group, 10 patients in the vaccine group,
Mhm.
uh, of the 10 patients in placebo, 9 got ill, but in the in the active group, actively vaccinated group, maybe only 1 got ill.
Okay.
So that's the difference between these
Mm,
two. Versus the AstraZeneca, it's looking like a 70% efficacy.
right.
But
Right.
they all of them seem to prevent severe illness. They
Okay.
can prevent severe illness from happening if and when magkaroon ng COVID pa rin despite the vaccine. It's a
Mm.
milder illness. So
Oh,
in terms of the efficacy, it looks, I mean, like the 70% can be actually quite good, quite acceptable. So this is what we're seeing so far in terms of these leading candidates
yes,
for,
yes.
for us.
That's right. And what do we know about the other vaccines that seem to be in the running also, that is often talked about in the news? What are your thoughts on that, Doc Weaver?
Well, the issue here is transparency of data. I
Okay.
think it's really important. We're all living in a pandemic where we're all very nervous, we're all very scared. We want to get this vaccine out immediately. Yet at
Yes.
the same time, we all want to be sure that whatever we administer is actually very safe and
Mm.
efficacious. So we need to know the data, right? So that's
Mm.
the beauty with the AstraZenecas, the Pfizer's, the
Mm.
Modernas. They regularly publish their data. So
Yeah.
tuloy, from start to finish, you hear of all of the development programs, the hiccups that went on along the
Mhm.
way, the
Right.
numbers. You actually see the numbers. They're
Yeah.
published, and then clinicians, epidemiologists can pull them together, study, compare, contrast, dissect like crazy. And then
Right.
they all came out saying, oh, these are good.
Mm.
All right. And so now you can trust and believe in that.
Mhm.
When you have naman an issue where, huh? You're hearing rumors, press
Mm.
release dito, press release doon, na ganito yung lumalabas, parang, okay, so what's the real data?
Right. Right.
You, I mean, like you start getting concerned.
Yeah.
Are we actually getting a really safe and efficacious vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that's the scenario that's been generated by this lack of transparency,
Yeah.
the lack of publications that have come out along the way or not come out
Mhm.
along the way.
Right. There's a question. Efficacy versus effectiveness. Please enlighten us, Doc. I think nalilito sila about what you mean by
They're
efficacy.
very similar in many ways. Ano? Efficacy in this particular case is in when you're trying to determine in comparison to the comparator agent. In this case, it's placebo or saline solution versus the actual vaccine. So the efficacy, it's like in comparison with that, it is
Mm.
95% efficacious. So if, again, like I said, if you have 100 and 100 being given each placebo or saline, 90% efficacious means you will have less, 90% less in the
Mm.
vaccine group versus that of the placebo group. Which is why the example I said, so in the 10 group, kung 9 nagkasakit, maybe dito sa active group, 1 lang magkasakit. So it's a comparison between the two groups.
Right.
Okay? But does the vaccine actually work in
Mm.
terms of preventing illness? Yes,
Mm.
that's effectiveness. It actually does what it's supposed to do. Pero
Okay.
efficacy tends to be more of a comparison versus somebody else.
Right, right. Okay. So effective, there's no question, it's effective. So
Right,
efficacy na lang is the whether 90% ka, di ba, or
right,
whether 70% ka, that's ano. So therefore says effectiveness is not a question. So it's really
right,
more an issue of efficacy. Okay.
right.
Always hear this term, emergency use approval. Could you like
Mm.
enlighten us lang in simple terms, di ba?
In simple
Emergency
terms,
approval. Yeah.
in normal daily living or in normal times, pre-pandemic times, we have the necessity of going through years and years of study to
Mm.
prove that the product is actually safe. Because think about it, vaccines is you are giving an agent to a well person, somebody
Yeah.
who's not ill.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be damn sure that what you inject in that person's arm is something that will not cause more harm. So
Right.
we would spend years and years and years trying to
Yeah.
prove that first. Kaya inaabot ng 10, 15 years bago
Uh-huh.
lumabas yung final product,
Mm.
final approval.
Yeah.
In this time of pandemic, people are dying left, right, and center, right? I mean, like we saw
Yeah.
that the mortality rate, the mortality number is going up, creeping up again, something like close to 2%. So this is a strange and frightening situation. So you need something that, as much as you can do with about 60, 90-day data, post
Mm.
injection, follow up data, you can actually say that yes, in the next 60 to 90 days, wala mangyayari sa recipient.
Okay.
So, kaya tuloy, parang it's a little compressed. The
Mm-hmm.
timelines are compressed. The
Yeah.
safety standard is still there,
Mm.
but the timelines are a bit compressed. So, which is why it's called emergency use.
Yes.
In this grave situation, sige, let's use this now because we know that it works, it's
Mm.
efficacious, and we know that the side effects are generally well tolerated or very minimal.
All
So,
right.
kumbaga, it makes it ano that this is not for commercial use. This
Mm.
is for pandemic use. This is for the national government's use to be able to come out of this pandemic, to stop this epidemic as soon as we can. But
Okay.
it's not for the regular commercial use, like when you say, "Oh, I want to get my flu shot."
Mm.
You get
Mm.
the in the normal channels. This
Yeah.
one abnormal. It's
Mm.
unusual channels that we're going to be
Mhm.
going through, and it will all be centralized with the Department of Health.
Okay. Okay. So when does it shift from emergency use approval to a state where it's a commercial approval?
Well, first and foremost, the WHO has to declare that the pandemic is over.
Oh, okay.
All right, the WHO will declare that the pandemic is over, and that
Mm.
means pretty much that every country has it well under control,
Mm.
and we're not having more these sudden surges in cases.
Right.
Pag ganyan, potentially the FDA will now request, I want more data. Show me
Mm.
all of this data that was missing from the start. Maybe you have special groups like
Right.
dialysis patients, or maybe you have a pediatric study that
Mm.
you haven't done yet. I want to see all of this data. Then you can get your full approval. When you have your full approval from the regulatory agency,
Mm.
then we can now go to the usual channels, selling through the hospital, selling through the doctors, etc.
Mm.
So
Okay.
medyo matagal pa yan.
Oo nga. So until then, emergency use approval tayo. Okay. And, people, of course, I guess a lot of people are saying, nako, minadali, di ba? Parang it was developed in such a short span of time. Baka, di ba, merong mga shortcut dyan and all that. What do you have to say about that? It was developed under a year.
It's fantastic that it was developed under the year. And the main reason that happened so quickly is because early January 2020, lumabas na yung the full genome of the virus. So
Mm.
when that all that data came out, suddenly all of the scientists or all of the laboratories in the world were able to nitpick, study, and figure out how and where does this virus work. And
Okay.
tuloy, they were able to determine very quickly it was a spike protein, and that
Mm.
spike protein has a receptor binding domain na
Mm.
dun kumakabit sa receptor of the human respiratory channel.
Okay.
So when people figured out that that was the active business end of the virus, they were now able to create the vaccine that would
Mhm.
target that particular space by
Right.
creating antibodies that would go there to prevent that binding between the receptor binding domain and
Mm.
the receptor. So tuloy, the antibodies hopefully will now prevent, and yan yung sinasabi ng neutralizing antibodies. Now,
Mm.
normally, we go through things in sequence. Very rigid sequence.
Yes.
Very rigid yan.
Yes.
Do preclinical, phase one, you do this number of patients. Then you do phase 2A.
Right.
It has to be this number of patients. Then you
Mm.
go to phase 2B before,
Mhm.
and you do so many hundreds of patients before you finally go into phase 3.
Three.
Ang
Mhm.
nangyari ngayon, phase 2 and phase 2A and B parang pinagsama na. So
Mhm.
two people were already trying to we were
Mhm.
guesstimating the right dose already,
Mhm.
but the safety measures were always very similar. The same as safety measures that you would do in a long-term 15-year study was exactly the same, if not more, done in
Right.
this shorter term study because everybody was watching whatever you were doing. I mean, like the
Yes.
scrutiny that all of these trials went through is so
Mhm.
much more than the usual.
Mhm.
Ano. So, no, I don't believe that any of these minadali. There were
Mhm.
no shortcuts really taken, which is why, again, the beauty of all of these companies regularly publishing their
Yes.
data. We
Right.
all heard about a company pausing their trial or
Mhm.
putting the trial on hold muna while they investigated potential side effects,
Right.
potential
Right.
serious side effects. So you know the system was working in terms of checking and looking out for potential side effects
Right.
from the vaccine. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely no shortcuts were taken. All the
Mhm.
safety standards were there. So which is why again transparency was key. That really gave a lot of people confidence that these were the approvable vaccines.
Okay. So guys, it's safe. It's been tested. There's no question about that. No shortcuts. Um, but in media, Doc Beaver, we like sometimes read these like horror stories, about this person received the vaccine and like had a blood disorder, right? And this person,
Mm.
so it kind of like, di ba, the regular person will like say, oh, nako, ayoko niyan, di ba? Baka mangyari yan sa akin. So, can you like enlighten us about that so that makalma yung mga fears?
Well, I think the really important thing is that when we select the vaccine to actually include in the national immunization program, the data is actually out there. It must be out there. It must have been well published, well discussed, not just by Philippine authorities, hopefully by other reputable agencies across the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're now living in a global world, right? I mean, like everybody has access to the internet, and it's great
Yes.
that we can actually see what the Europeans are doing, what the Japanese are saying, the Australians
Mm-hmm.
are saying, and not just the Philippine authorities. So I mean, like if you have this body of evidence or body of authorities globally all saying the same thing that yeah, this is good, then you tend to have a higher credibility, higher faith in that particular vaccine.
Right.
The issue now becomes oftentimes in the execution or the implementation of the program.
Mm-hmm.
Important talaga the role of the patient groups, the role of the local medical doctors, uh, the role of the city mayor, right?
Yes.
City health officer, the national government. All of these people should be really going through what are the key issues or the
Mm-hmm.
barriers that are top of mind in the minds of the potential recipients in the community and address it in a meaningful dialogue. Actually, talk to each other rather than lecture. It must
Mm-hmm.
be a dialogue rather
Yes.
than a lecture. And that way you can get the fears out there and hopefully we can address the fears. And I've seen that happen even in the the scandal of a couple of years ago. the
Mm-hmm.
fear induced by that situation, we were
Yes.
able to see mothers or parents go from a 20% acceptance
Mm.
after that one particular session lang, just talking with the authorities, talking with reputable doctors, naging 90-95% acceptance rate for the babies. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
easy enough to turn around so long as we all spend the time and effort and willingness to actually dialogue and answer the questions truthfully and as honestly and openly as we can.
Correct. It really has to be dialogue, not just one way dictatorial.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
choose the authorities, right? It should be the right spokesman. You need
Yes.
the right person who's
That's true.
communicating with
Mhm.
the group, the patient groups, be it the
That's right.
elderly, be it the senior citizens, even
Yeah.
doctors. I mean, like I know that there are doctors who are
Mm.
have thinking twice, right? So yeah, they need to hear from an authority, somebody they look up to. They need to hear that the data is actually pretty
Yes.
solid.
Yes, that's true. Okay, you mentioned that, no, government and all that. So a few days ago, there's this controversy between, procurement of local government, and then, national says, oh, it all has to come, go through us. What are your thoughts about that? And, enlighten us.
Well, this is emergency use again, emergency use authorization. So by every right, it's the national government that should be negotiating. All right,
Okay.
they should be actually. We should. The Department of Health should have been in the front of the list, screaming, "I want doses! I want doses!" and talking to all the companies
Mhm.
from the get-go. That should have been their
Right.
job.
Yeah. Okay.
But we've all heard and all read the
Mm.
dropping the ball type of
Mm-hmm.
discussion. Right?
Yes.
So what are we seeing now? We're seeing the local government units stepping up to the plate,
Mm-hmm.
and with the seal of approval of this approval to enter into tripartite agreements, we now have a situation where the national government with the local government unit with the manufacturer
Mm.
all coming together in a tripartite agreement saying that okay, LGU says eto yung pera ko, I'm going to vaccinate 400,000. I need 400,000 doses for 200,000 of my priority.
Mm.
Okay? Tugma yung priority sa that of the DOH. They have to align in terms of
Yeah.
the priority groups na babakunahan nila. When you have that, you have this tripartite situation where potentially, yeah, while the government will be in charge of still securing the supply, aba, may money down na ako. LGU, may money down na ako. Hoy,
Mm.
bigay mo sa akin yung 400 doses na yan. 400,000 doses na yan.
Oo.
Tapos pera pambayad doon. And I will still align to the Department of Health priorities. Yan ang importante, alignment with the Department of Health priorities. You really don't want a situation where, again, because malaking pera ng isang particular grupo, na
Mm.
suddenly wealth becomes the determinant kung
Mm.
who gets vaccinated first, right?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
you're in a pandemic situation. There must be equity. There must be real prioritization.
Right.
Top priority must really be the healthcare frontliners.
Mm.
Then we can discuss should it be the senior citizens with disabilities or with mga underlying comorbidities, or maybe the healthy senior citizens, and then those health productive essential frontline workers like
Right.
mga people processing meat, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the types of discussions that must happen. And this is yung sinasabi natin na dapat may alignment between the LGU and
DOH.
the national government,
Yeah.
DOH.
Mm-mm.
Think the situation where money talks again.
Mm.
So oh no. Since I'm putting down money, I want to give that vaccine to my business priorities.
Mm.
People who will deliver my business priorities. Parang,
Right. Yeah.
what happened to the pandemic? Di ba?
Right.
Parang naging priority, business na naman, imbis na health
Oo.
for everybody.
Body.
Protect everybody who is the most vulnerable and the ones who actually keep the economy running.
Right.
So, which is the whole point of doing these tripartite agreements to make sure that it isn't just money talking.
Yes.
The government has a role in helping determine the priority groups,
Mm-hmm.
and that way you have equity in the distribution of the vaccine.
Right. So, pwede ba yun, Doc? Kasi parang pumipili ang mga LGU, di ba? Pasig wants Astra, di ba? Makati wants ano. Is that possible?
So long as there's supply, siguro, yeah. I guess
Mhm.
I guess nagiging the rate limiting factor is really going to be what's the supply and what's the
Right,
price. Because like right now, we don't know how much supply we can actually get and when we can actually get the supply in. So tama
right.
rin naman ng gobyerno that they should actually be shopping around and
Mhm.
talking to all the potential manufacturers and
Mhm.
suppliers. Okay, can you give me 20 million doses? Can you give me 40 million doses? Can you give me 25 million doses?
Mhm.
Iba-ibang manufacturers committing to their different volumes. But of course, the first criteria ng gobyerno must be number one, it's safe and efficacious.
Correct.
Yan.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
if all of the people they talk to
Mm.
fit that criteria,
Mhm.
high efficacy, high safety profile,
Right.
and you see the data from even multiple countries have already bought that particular vaccine, by
Yeah.
all means, it doesn't matter anymore which one actually is which. But if you have a situation where you don't know what you're gonna get, it's
Yes.
like Forrest Gump, but it's like a box of chocolate. You don't know what you're gonna get.
Right, right, right.
Okay, mamimili
Yeah.
na talaga, di ba? Mamimili na
Oo.
talaga LGU. And syempre, it's their budget. If the published price or the talked about price is really $4 a dose, hey, by all means,
Mm.
if I can get that, I'll get that. I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
spend my money more, di ba, for my citizens.
That's right. So, paano yun, Doc? Parang wala pala kaming choice. I mean, because now it all
Lahat
goes
tayo,
through the government. Di ba?
lahat tayo walang choice.
Wala tayong choice.
Well, we certainly hope and pray that the enlightenment comes to our vaccines efficacy group. I think there's this panel that's
Mhm.
evaluating all the potential vaccines. The FDA approving only those that actually have demonstrated high efficacy and safety.
Right.
We need these regulators to step up to the plate and actually really uphold their oath and
Right.
deliver on their commitment to deliver safe, efficacious vaccines and medical products to the Filipino. Yeah, with that, if that happens, then yeah, I think we can be comfortable with the which whatever vaccine or brand na makuha ng LGU natin. So long as syempre the people at the start, at the forefront, yung mga
Mm.
regulatory agencies natin, the health authorities have made the right decision or made the right choice.
So we have to pray for that they make the right choice on behalf of, di ba, of everyone. Okay. So a question here. Can you still get infected and infect other people even if you have been vaccinated?
See, that's the reason why we need to take a look at the efficacy profile, right? With the Moderna and with the Pfizer, they're claiming 95% efficacious. So
Yes.
halos very minimal chance of getting infected.
Mm-mm.
That's what it means, eh. Kasi binakunahan kayong lahat. Everybody got vaccinated in the study group, placebo versus active. Then they
Yeah.
went out to the community. Dito
Mm.
sa placebo, nagkaroon ng sakit. Dito sa binakunahan, halos walang nakasakit or maybe only one person
Right.
got sick. So yes, there's still the possibility that of coming down with an illness,
Mm-hmm.
but in all likelihood, it's still minalas ka na lang. You were one of the malas ones
Okay.
because everybody else in your group didn't get it.
Yeah.
But the likelihood is that you have a much milder disease than
Yon.
what you could have had because in the other group you had all the severe illnesses were happening there, right?
Right.
Versus only mild disease
Right.
in the one or two who actually came down with illness.
Right. So,
Now, those who come down with illness, of course,
mm,
even if vaccinated, potentially could still transmit to somebody else because
mm,
they had active illness.
yeah.
Question mark, which I think only time will answer,
Mm-hmm.
is those who actively were vaccinated and do not fall ill,
Mm-hmm.
do they still have the potential of carrying the virus inside their nasal passages and breathe it out and therefore transmit to somebody else? That I think nobody has the answer to.
Yeah.
Only time will be able to answer that particular question when we finally
Right.
have the.
Right. Nako, controversial yata itong tanong na to. Doc, if you can choose a COVID vaccine for you, what brand of vaccine do you want to receive? Doc is the president of PHAP, so that's kind of difficult for him.
Well, I'm also the president of Merck Sharp and Dome, and we have a vaccine also in development, but that's 1 or 2 years later. So that's we're the second wave. If I can
Yeah.
wait, I want my own vaccine.
Oh, syempre, di ba? Love your
Own, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, syempre, sasabihin ng mga pilosopo, pwede naman palang I can still get COVID. So, why should I get myself vaccinated? Diba? Why don't I just wait for herd immunity?
Herd immunity doesn't work that way. Herd
Mm.
immunity works in protecting those who are vulnerable, who can never be vaccinated.
Mm.
What happens in herd immunity is that the likelihood of transmitting is lower simply because people around the vulnerable person are all not transmitting illness anymore.
Mm.
That's when it becomes herd immunity because
Right.
because hindi na nakakaroon ng opportunity for the virus to transfer from person to person to person.
Yeah.
The unprotected person now has a chance. And these
Mm.
are really people who have severe immunologic disorders or they cannot, for whatever reason, receive a vaccine. Now,
Mm.
for those who want to be the supposed recipient of that protection by not taking anything,
Yes.
well, of course, you're putting yourself at risk, right?
Right.
You're
Right.
putting yourself at risk from coming down with COVID,
Yeah.
right? And you'll be fantastic if you are in the 98% who have mild symptoms. But what if you fall in the 2%
Yeah.
who have moderate to severe illnesses?
Mhm.
And the problem with this virus, it's so random.
Yeah.
You don't really know which individual will be the
Mhm.
next individual who will be potentially intubated.
Right.
It's so difficult to forecast kung sino
Yeah.
talaga. We can see there's more likelihood, but
Yeah.
we've heard 100-year-olds survive COVID.
Yeah. True. True.
Diba? I
Yeah.
mean, like, and we hear about people in their 40s with no comorbidities dying.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there was this just recently in the US, right? A newly elected congressman, first timer, he was only 40 something,
Oh.
prime of his life, dies of COVID.
Yes. Yes.
Parang it's so random.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, like, gusto mo talaga isugal ang buhay mo, okay? Go for it.
Hintay ko ng herd immunity. Tsaka, di ba
Ah,
yung herd immunity, Doc Beaver? Well, according to Dr. Fauci, herd immunity is 70%, 70 to 85% of the population. And because we are an archipelago, it will like really take, di ba? How are you?
never get there. I'll never
Yeah,
get there.
we'll
Yeah.
never get there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, the best we ever got was like 80%, 85% protection for measles. But
Mm.
that quickly dissipated after just 2 or 3 years.
Right, right.
So,
So
I mean, like, it's not permanent, right? Herd immunity is not permanent.
it's not permanent. Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Alma Miklat. Dr. Beaver, will you recommend the vaccine to a 71-year-old with a heart condition who has had cabbage
Absolutely.
and several angioplasty?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
We have seen um, COVID is not just a pneumonia illness. Okay? COVID is not pneumonia. It's actually an inflammatory disease.
Mm.
It's an inflammatory vascular disease where it can affect the blood vessels, not just of the lungs, which is the first point of entry, but it affects the heart muscles, the brain, all right? The legs. Kaya nakakaroon ng, they've actually called it a COVID toe. Nakakagangrene yung toe. Because
Diba?
nga, there's this predisposition to forming blood clots all over the place.
Mm-mm.
So it is not a pneumonia disease. It is a vascular inflammatory disease. So somebody who already has a lot of atherosclerosis, we need to be protected against this particular illness. Definitely, I would strongly recommend that person get a vaccine. Get a COVID vaccination. Yeah.
Okay. There you
Kung
go.
may pa ng diabetes, lalo na.
Oo nga. Yeah. So, kailangan. Um, Okay, the all-important question. When do you expect the vaccines to arrive in the Philippines?
Well, depends on the manufacturer and their manufacturing capabilities, right? We know that a lot of these companies have struck deals with other manufacturers to produce their vaccine for them. Like AstraZeneca has been talking to companies in India to manufacture doses of the
Mhm.
vaccine. I think it might even be Serum Institute of India, which is going to be a manufacturer for the AstraZeneca vaccine. So again, the problem with manufacturing vaccines, it's not as easy as making a tablet where you get
Mm.
ingredient A, ingredient B, mix and compress, and out it goes.
Right.
Yung itong mga vaccines, you have to culture them. You have to nurture these things to make sure that you actually get a yield.
Right.
And these viral vector type of vaccines, you really run into this potential issue of whether or not you actually create or actually have a yield from your manufacturing process.
Mm.
The messenger RNA vaccines, such as that of Pfizer and Moderna, supposedly it's simpler a manufacturing process, not as
Mhm.
complicated as the viral vector type of vaccines. So allegedly, they can really ramp up manufacturing very quickly, and that's what we're hearing in the U.S. Pfizer says, "Oh, we have no issue with manufacturing. We don't have an issue of being able to supply you." Yung pala, hinuhoard ni Trump yung bakuna, hindi
Mhm.
pinamimigay. Kaya
Mhm.
nagkakaroon ng shortage, artificial
Yeah.
shortage.
Yes.
So maybe that's true, that the messenger RNA vaccine can actually be manufactured very quickly.
Okay.
So uh, again, it's a matter of one, have we signed the deal with
Mm.
Pfizer to actually bring in product? And I know that they're close, they're negotiating, but I don't believe that they've actually signed on the dotted line yet. All the parties in the green in the tripartites, or even with
Right.
the national government.
Okay. What's your best hunch? What is
Best
your best?
hunch,
Yes.
optimistic.
Yes.
My
Optimistic.
optimistic is really by the sometime in the second quarter, probably closer to June.
Okay.
If I'm being pessimistic, oh God, maybe third to fourth quarter.
Wow. Tagal.
Wala,
Okay.
no?
Doon na lang ako
Nakaka-
doon na lang ako sa May June. So your hunch is May June, right? So my my heart and my prayer is also on second quarter of the year.
We
Yeah.
all hope that it's sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not part of any of these companies that are manufacturing, so I really
Right.
am not privy to their timelines. So
Right.
this is just looking at what's being published, what's happening in the rest of the world. I mean, and how quickly they can actually get doses out there. So hopeful, we're
Right.
hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question. Hi, doc. Have you been vaccinated or are you going to avail the vaccine? Doctor
I
hasn't been.
wish I were vaccinated. No, I haven't been vaccinated. No,
Yes,
I wish
but
I was. Definitely, I will. I will avail.
you will avail. Yeah, me too. Once it's there. So we're still going to be wearing our masks for. Do you think the duration of the year? Most likely.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this is the mask is the real new fashion accessory. It's not no
Yeah,
longer accessory. It's probably a necessity for life.
that's right. Because even, di ba, even if you get the vaccine, syempre there, right? I mean, so we'll still be wearing masks throughout 2021. That's the way that it seems. Let's talk briefly about this new variant, Doc
Mm.
Beaver. So hindi naman siya mas nakakamatay, di ba? I mean, it's just that it's more transmissible. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and while it doesn't cause worse illness, it does not cause worse illness. For
Yes.
everything that we've seen about it in the UK, it's not about worsening illness. It's about overloading the healthcare system.
Hmm.
Let's make it simple. If you have the previous virus, the previous variant, sabihin natin it would transmit to or seriously ill 2 out of 100 patients. It's still
Okay.
2%, right?
Okay.
But it
Yes.
only affected 100 people.
Hmm.
2 out of the 100 got of the 100 infected, two ended up needing hospitalization. These new variants potentially will not just affect 100. That could be 10,000. So
Oh,
even if it's just 2% of the 10,000 requiring hospitalization, wow,
yeah.
you're going to overload. You're
Right.
really going to overload your hospitals.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the scary part. And I think that's what's happening now in the UK.
Mm.
They've picked up this variant since October last year, papala, and it's
Mhm.
actually now the dominant variant in the UK.
Oh,
Look at what's happening now with their hospitalization.
yeah.
I mean, like their hospitals are overwhelmed,
Right.
and even now we're starting to hear about hospitals starting to quietly reopen wards that they had previously closed. COVID wards that they had closed kasi wala ng pasyente.
Yes.
Suddenly they're talking about reopening them. And that's, you start wondering, oh my God, are we in the cusp of this new
Yes.
variant
Mhm.
spreading our
Mhm.
community? Or
Yeah.
is this just because of the holiday
Yeah.
surge?
Right.
Hindi talaga makaiwas sa family gathering.
Okay.
Because the timing, right? It's all about now. It's
Yes.
just about now.
Yes.
But this is also about the time that we finally realized that
Right.
the variant, the UK variant, B1.1.7 point, is already here in the country.
Mm.
So obviously the Philippine Genomic Studies group, they're going to have to now start to try to analyze all of these new cases and see
Yes.
whether or not it's actually coming from this new variant.
Right. So talagang don't put your guard down pa rin, right? Because COVID, no? COVID is still very much with us, even if our
Yeah,
numbers are, diba?
yeah.
Buti nga,
I
we're
think
like,
it's relatively low, but we're
yes,
starting to see this slight inflection upwards. We also track it normally. We track the numbers in our office also,
yes,
and we're
yes,
seeing this very disturbing spike towards the end of the curve that we're tracking.
talaga. Oh, okay. So,
So something to watch out for, and we cannot let our guard down. We cannot let our
yeah,
guard.
cannot, no? We still cannot talaga. Okay. Um, so there's still a lot of vaccine hesitancy, diba? And so much misinformation. What would really be the best way you think to combat, how can we do our part as individuals to help combat, vaccine hesitancy?
Well, right now, uh, the Department of Health has reached out to PHAP and other groups to help formulate the communication messages,
Yes.
and then what are the key questions or the doubts that are in top of mind of our citizens, right? So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can pull together the right messaging and the right way of communicating.
Good.
Siyempre, we cannot be all English spokening all the time, right?
Yes, that's true.
We have
That's
to
true.
learn how to speak the language of the audience,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes,
So, and then
yes.
addressing particular fears that they have or the particular
Right.
concerns. So hopefully the communication messages, how we're
Mm.
going, the talking points will all be threshed out and they be very clear. And we now have to select the different channels of media by
Mm.
which we can communicate. Is it
Yes,
radio? Is it television? Social
yes,
media? Or is,
yes.
events like this?
Mm.
Print media? Or Jaryo, right? Should it be in mga Bulgar or should it be in the Inquirer,
Mhm.
broadsheet, right?
Mhm. Right.
All of these have to be discussed and decided upon, and then lay out that communication plan and start aggressively doing it sooner rather than later. I
True.
mean, like, you don't want to do things when the vaccine is sitting in the warehouse. You want
Yeah.
to do it before it arrives in the country so that it flies off the shelves, maubos ka agad, magamit ka agad ng it gets
Correct.
to the people who actually need it the most.
You did.
So
Yes.
definitely the professional communicators, the marketers,
Mhm.
people who know how to advertise and sell things. We need to
Yes.
start helping the Department of Health in this particular space, because that's not the expertise of the Department of Health, right? The
Mhm.
expertise
Mhm.
of selling things, that
Yeah,
belongs with marketers.
that's right. So dapat tulong-tulong tayo, di ba?
Correct.
Yeah, but interesting that you point out. I've actually heard a lot of conspiracy theories come, from the AB segment of society. So, which I think
Ay,
is
yung mga may
to
5G
vaccine.
chips.
Yeah. Yes, yes. What are some of the funnier conspiracy theories that you've heard, and please debunk them.
Well, the only one that really caught my attention was itong may 5G chips
Yes, my
embedded inside or within dissolved within that vaccine, so that when it comes in, gets injected in you, it controls your brain now. It's like, huh? Really? Wow. What
right.
science fiction movie have you been watching lately?
That's right. Or that it can track you, 'di ba? When you may chip down, 'di ba? And that it can track you, or that if you get injected with it, you get COVID. Wala kang COVID, magpapa-injection ka, mako-COVID ka niyan, 'di ba? So,
If you're worried about being tracked, hello. These
yes.
things are tracking you everywhere you go, yet you keep it with you night and day, and you sleep with it beside your head.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
So, pero yung na nga, again, not the vaccines are never going to be 100% efficacious. There will always be somebody out there who will not take, makakaroon ng vaccination failure. So that particular person but they still have some benefit in terms of a milder disease
Mhm.
rather than in severe illness. So yes, there's still a lot of benefit to actually receiving the vaccine.
Right, right. And I know storage, diba, is an issue because you keep it in a temperature, but it's possible to have all, diba, right now, all three, Pfizer, Moderna, and Astra can enter the country, correct?
Potentially, once may, like yung EUA na nga, once may
Mm-mm.
emergency use application, pwede na ipasok. But
Right.
yes, do we have the logistics? Do we have the right infrastructure to be able to handle these vaccines?
Mm-hmm.
If it's just 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, yeah, that's refrigerator, and that's what we've been doing for many, many years, decades, right? So the Department of Health does have that infrastructure. I guess
Mm-hmm.
the question is about these additional requirements for freezer conditions for
Yes,
other vaccines. So
right.
I believe that I've heard and spoke with people from Zwilig, who is
Mm-hmm.
the biggest distributor of drugs and vaccines in the country.
Right.
They have been investing early on.
Mm-hmm.
In, mid-year pala yata last year, they've already been investing or planning out the kind of equipment they needed. So they've are actually been setting up. Then I just read the other day, was it that Mayor Moreno has freezers na raw in Manila?
Manila. Wow.
Meron na raw sila. So that I just read that press release. I don't know how true it is, but that's what they're saying, that handa na raw sila. And then just before this show, we went live. I saw this post from Tagig.
Mm.
They were touring this facility for handling this cold chain. Pero I didn't see the details as to whether it's what kind of conditions. Is it refrigerator or is it freezer? Or
Okay.
does it do both, right?
That's
So
right. That's
people
right.
are talking about it. That's a good thing. People
Yeah.
have preparing for it. I know Sweden has been preparing for it. And because, again, transparency, early on, Pfizer has always talked about the storage conditions of their particular vaccine. So people were able to prepare for it.
Mm-mm. That's right. Yeah. And well, I hope people don't politicize it, but of course, this is a perfect, you know, ano rin to chance din to for the mayors actually to, make sure that and so guys, let's look
Well,
out for mayors and see how they handle this rollout of the vaccines.
it is fantastic that the mayors will actually do something really good for their citizenry.
Right. Yes. Diba?
Let's leave it at that.
Oh, impressive actually. So, but we'll see the rollout. Okay.
Right.
Hello, Dr. Beaver. What can you say about how we take news in social media, especially about the vaccine?
Again, social media is like, I know, right? It's really the internet. There's a lot of garbage, so you really need to be selective with the authorities that you or the people who are publishing. You need to
Right.
understand who they are, what are their credentials, why are they saying what they're saying? Do they have an agenda, right? So really look for authoritative sources. Now, there are a few really good authorities who are very active in social media. Some are cancer survivors. They've talked about, and they're patient advocates. So they've been, I think they have a really strong following, and they have very. If you look at their positions or what they've been talking about, it's been very clear, very medically sound. So
Mm.
probably those would be the people you would want to follow in social media. Of
Right.
course, you would want to look at things like CNN or uh, uh, these um, medicines.gov or these types of organizations that are really focused on the science of medicine. Or
Right.
WebMD, I think, is one of those that are also very, very authoritative. So
Yeah.
you can see what their opinions are or what the publications are saying.
That's true. We need to be very discerning about what we listen to and what
So
we
what I
do.
was looking for, discerning.
Yeah, fact check, di ba? Because if you just read kung basta-basta, oh my gosh, matatakot ka, hindi
Yeah,
ka na magpapabakuna, di ba? So,
yeah,
Emily
and,
said pala, yes, Manila is building a storage warehouse in Santa Ana Hospital.
oh, yun. I saw
Yon.
that release nga. Oh.
Okay, so very good. Mayor Isko, di ba? Abangan namin yan. So, sana din kami sa Taguig. Ganun. So, these are going to be,
Meron daw. I don't know if you follow the
oh,
Eye of Taguig sa Twitter.
yes, right.
May picture sila. They're inspecting something and mukhang naka-winter clothes sila.
Oo. Sana nga, sana nga. So, kung ano yung sa ikabubuti, di ba, ng
Right.
Pilipinas. Yeah, ng Pilipinas. I mean, a lot of things have happened nga. Like I said, from the first time that, we had you here on the show and now 5 months later, well, things are hopefully looking up, di ba? I mean, there's hope now on the horizon, right?
Yes. Obviously, we can potentially see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
Hopefully, it's not an oncoming train. But yeah, we still need to. No, we still need to keep our guards. Continue wearing the face mask, frequent washing of hands.
Right.
Do not touch your eyes because really
Right.
that's a portal of entry also. And then
Right.
of course physical distance.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, like I miss going to restaurants also.
Yeah.
I also miss enjoying chatting the night away. But
Mhm.
hey, I mean, like these are dangerous times. These are
Right.
deadly times. So
Still
protect yourself.
dangerous times, right? Yeah, still dangerous times. Protect yourself. Final word, Dr. Beaver, before we let you go.
Hmm.
Final word to the public. Ano po ang mensahe ninyo? I mean, at this stage in the game, and something to hope for and look forward to.
Well, syempre, protect pa rin sarili natin. Let's practice pa rin all of the safety health protocols. At the same time, pay particular attention to news, particularly how the choices of the vaccines are being made by our national authorities. Dumaan ba sila sa proseso where they actually reviewed all of the data? Are their findings similar to what's been published, say, by the European Medical Association or Medicines Authority or the FDA of the US or of the Japanese, right? Are these authorities all aligned in saying the same thing about particular brands or
Mhm.
manufacturers? Is the manufacturer of good reputation for quality, for putting the safety of their patients first?
Yeah.
If all of these check out right and they claim to have a very safe and efficacious product, by all means, magpabakuna na.
Mm.
When it's your turn, when they call you to register, mag-register na kayo online, physical, whatever way.
Mm.
And when your schedule is called up, you're allocated to the schedule, magpabakuna na kayo. Show up for your registration date because
Right.
you are saving yourself, you are protecting yourself, you're protecting your family from illness.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Beaver, di ba? Malapit na. Huwag lang nga trend na gusto natin. Ilaw, di
Ilang
ba?
tulog na lang. Ilang tulog na lang.
Correct. Nakikita na natin ng ilaw. And Dr. Beaver and I, our money is on, our money, our hope is that, May or June, di ba, Doc? So, we should
Sooner
talk,
rather than later.
yeah, sooner
Sooner
rather than
rather
later. Yeah. Second quarter. That's my prayer. Second quarter of the year. Doc
Yeah.
Weaver, thank you so much for joining us tonight. As usual, I learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience tonight learned a lot. And we're inspired and informed. It's an inspiring and informative evening with you. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you, Cathy. Thanks for the opportunity again. It's
Thank
been
you.
fun.
Yes, it has
Bye.
been. See you. Bye-bye. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
We'll be back. Conversations with Cathy will be right back.
I learned a lot, and I hope that you did too. So I think the one of the most important takeaways is let's look out. No, let's see how they choose. Let's see how they choose the vaccine for us. But there's no question about the effectiveness. It's a matter of efficacy, but all of them work. But yun na nga, transparency. We have to look out. We hope, we pray that the government chooses the right vaccines that will be good for all of us. So, Cholo, come join me before we say goodbye. It's
Ay,
daytime.
Miss Cat.
It's daytime. Diba? So,
Nagra-rise na po ang sun dito sa likod. Pero grabe, Miss Cat. Sobrang personally, medyo nakalma po ako nung listening to Doc Beaver. Alam natin na medyo hot topic talaga yung usapang
topic talaga. Yeah.
bakuna. Pero I also want to say, Miss Cat, na the last time na we had si Doc Beaver on here, parang ang running joke natin, are we gonna have a COVID-free Christmas?
Yes.
Tapos, ang biro ni Doc, kailan? 2021, 2022.
Correct.
And look, parang we already have vaccines. Parang, I think we should let's take a breath and celebrate yung little victories na we have. We have yung vaccines, and
True.
sabi nga ni Doc, if we protect ourselves, we protect those around us.
Exactly. So let's be grateful for that na meron na tayong, diba? Na meron na tayong bakuna. That hope is really on the horizon. Konti na
Yes,
lang.
Ms. Cat.
Konti na lang. Maybe the next time we have Doc Beaver on the show, nabakunahan na ang karamihan sa atin. Diba?
Yeah, and hopefully, magdilang anghel po ang Q2 by May, June.
Q2 ako
Yes, Ms.
talaga.
Cat.
Q2, May, June. So, we'll see about that. Cholo, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cat. It's been fun.
Keep safe where you are across the Pacific. So,
Yes po.
Cholo and I will see you again at we'll see you at future time, but, we'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll keep them updated.
We'll keep you updated. But thank you all for joining us this evening. God bless and have a restful weekend.
God bless. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining this evening's conversation. See you next Friday night.